Okay. Welcome to Factorio. In this game, players are instantly thrown into a barren alien planet covered with raw materials and valuable ores. Your main objective of this journey is to escape this world by building a rocket ship by utilizing resources given around you. You'll have to create and manage factory lines and fend off aggressive aliens trying to eradicate you.
Factorio is a game in which you build and maintain ever-expanding factories, mine resources and refine them into vehicles, machines, weapons, etc. Everything you can craft you can automate. Finally, funnel materials into science packs and unlock more research, expanding your technology you can use. Factorio is strategy-based gameplay where the only competitor is your past self.
The main components to a factory are belts, which transfer solid matters between places. There are three types: normal belt that simply transfer materials on it, underground belt that can pass through obstacles, and splitters that split material evenly between two belts. Inserters act as in-between for the movement of every physical material. They take or pick up material from one side and place or insert on the other side. They're essential in the movement and refinery process of the factory. Machines are the carrying stations and advanced items. They are set to which items to craft and then transform input materials into craft items.
To create an assembly line, the player must arrange many of the basic components in a relatively complex pattern. The player is forced to make trade-offs as they design their factory. Efficiency, modularity, space, and speed are all engineering priorities, which can't all be achieved. The dynamic takes place because of how Factorio breaks down the essentials into small, easily arrangeable components, allowing the player to have more freedom of expression and experimentation. Factorio is similar to something such as Lego in this way, as small blocks by themselves aren't much but compound into larger structures, and allow for infinite potential arrangements.
In the extraterrestrial planet that Factorial takes place on, a native inhabitant can be seen running rampant. These inhabitants are vicious, insect-like creatures that spawn out of the hive and attack in large coordinated groups. Three main types of aliens exist: biters, the grunt of the world; spitters, the marksmen of the colony; and the worms, natural turret defenses. Factorio implemented three systems that will lead the aliens to evolve and grow more erratic. First, the passing of time will slightly increase the rate of evolution. Second, pollution production. As your base automations expand, equally will the pollution level rise. This irritates the aliens, which increase the rate of evolution. Thirdly, destroying alien nests will significantly increase the evolution rate. As factories expand, so too do the aliens' evolution. This creates a dynamic system in-game as the game world evolves to each expansion the player executes.
Resources in Factorio are split into three main categories: pure resources like wood, coal, stone, copper ore, iron ore, oil ore, uranium ore. These resources are all gained through simple mining means and are converted to either energy or materials. Fluid resources like crude oil, heavy oil, light oil, lubricant, petroleum gas, sulfuric acid, water, and steam all act the same as pure resources but require different handling procedures. The final resource being unminable like time, electricity, and health. Time is used as a resource in the game, as upgrades or higher amounts of science packs can reduce time, making it a variable the player interacts with. As the player expands, their electricity consumption rises dramatically. Late game introduces more effective forms of energy production, like solar panels, which encourage massive construction through daylight hours, which results in electricity and time interacting organically. As combat is an essential mechanic of the game, the player is given a health bar. This health bar refills after a few seconds. The player is not the only entity to have health though, as the enemies have the ability to completely wipe out the player's progress. Every constructed piece has a health with varying resistances. Enemies have health that scales massively. This forces the player to always upscale weapon production. In turn, resource consumption increases, and in turn, resource harvesting increases.
As players gather more resources and exhaust their natural supplies, they must decide whether to build an outpost around richer deposits, deciding how much time to allocate away from the main base. Now decisions become protecting power lines from aliens. Players must build wall and make trade-offs between material production and weapon advancement. Each choice in designing the base has a significant impact down the road, even for aesthetics. Once the players progress to to a laboratory, they encountered a skill tree that uses science packs to advance their weapons and constructions. The players must choose between making production for now or producing science pack for the future. The tree forces a decision between defense and offense, or unlocking advanced machineries for more resource production. Overall, Factorio rewards strategic thinking and decision making, making it a stimulating and engaging experience for the players. Factorio captures real-life aspect of resource flow and interaction, as well as the need to refine and transform raw material into valuable resources. As player advance, capability production time gradually increases, presenting a challenge akin to a real-world engineering.
Factorio's mechanics are purposeful and deliberate, with each aspect serving a specific purpose that ties directly into the player's actions and objectives. Achieving this level of coherence requires the developers to ask what and why for every mechanic and determining the best way to implement it. By understanding the player's perspective, the developers were able to provide a seamless experience that effectively guides the player through the mechanics and presents new information in a clear and natural way. For instance, in Factorio, research materials are integrated into other mechanics rather than being disconnected from them. This approach provides an opportunity for the game to guide the player passively. By forcing them to create components that are essential for later, the player must then automate the production of these components in order to research the next technologies of the game. However, the game doesn't feel like it's testing you. Instead, the player feels empowered when they repurpose excess components, which is precisely what the developers intended.
Factorio's unique difficulty curve is heavily dependent on the player's ability to plan and design their factories. Assembly line planning is a major challenge inside the game. As players use the same base resources to craft many different items, poor planning can result in overlapping belts, restrict expansion, and tightly woven assemblies. The game's mechanics are designed to punish players for lack of foresight, creating a unique challenge that rewards skillful planning and efficiency. Instead of adding obstacles, the developers use the core mechanic of the game to challenge players and encourage skill expression. This approach leads to a deeper gameplay experience with more replayability and enjoyment from mastery. Another example of the game that uses a core mechanic to allow skill expression would be Mario Odyssey, which has movement as core to the mechanic allow the players to hone skills and express themselves.
From the moment the player has landed, they are given one clear purpose: leave this planet. This purpose becomes sidetracked as the player fends for themselves and creates many objectives, like base expansion, weapon development, and protection and exploration. But due to the goal being so clear, the player always has direction, so between each smaller objective they never feel lost, but can instead think of another objective that will take them one step closer to the final goal. This allows the player freedom to craft their own story while unrestricted, but also paving the way for their narrative outcomes.
Factorio rewards efficiency in gameplay, resulting in positive feedback loop that promotes rapid expansion and faster construction for science packs. However, failure to keep up leads to a negative feedback loop, with production backup, blockage, wasted resources, and alien attacks. The game's difficulty curve is managed by the mechanics, but the negative feedback loop is less severe than the positive ones, as the game is designed to push players forward.
Overall, Factorio is a uniquely challenging game with a complex system and resource economy. It uses its mechanics to engage the player into the world and gives them limitless possibilities. Resources are gathered, smelted, processed, and transformed into other mechanics and systems, all which the player control. The enemies pose an obstacle that creates tough decisions for the player to prioritize something over another. They act as a driving force for the player to innovate and add a time limit to the player's pace. The act of simply building assembly lines becomes an incredibly tough battle of choices and foresight, all which matter very little on their own, but together can drastically change the game.